Thank you for joining us on this Friday as we complete another work week, and I trust it's been a good week for you. These are very important days as we see so much going on, and we need to be walking with God. I do want to encourage you, if you would, if you're not part of our assembly here, to pray for the Victory Conference coming up in just a little over a week. And we are excited about what God's going to do. We have a wonderful sign up, and if you can still come, we'd love to have you. We're asking God to work in all of our hearts. If you need information about that, just go on our website at fallsbaptist.org, and it'll give you everything you need. It'll take you to the Victory, or you can go to the Victory Conference site also, and all the information is there. Well, today I'd like to look at Ephesians 3, right in the heart of the great work of God in the church. The Apostle Paul had been given the privilege of explaining what the church is for this age, and speaks about the wonderful opportunity that we have to go boldly with confidence by faith to Christ, and the just all that God has given to us. And then right in the middle of that, he says in verse 13 of chapter 3, "Wherefore I desire that ye faint not at my tribulations for you, which is your glory." One of the things that I find can happen to us is that we see other people suffering for the cause of Christ. This was very dear to the Ephesian people, because Paul had ministered to them for months and months and had kept in close contact with them. And they had been given the rich opportunity of having that teaching, and then out of their church, having started churches throughout Asia Minor. And so the Apostle Paul meant much to them. And he was going through some great tribulations and problems. And he said, "I don't want you to faint at what's happening to me. Don't get scared for the persecution that I am facing, because God is the God that I'm talking about here. God's going to work in the church. He's going to do exceeding abundantly above. His glory is going to be seen in the church. His wisdom, as was just mentioned in this passage, will be seen through the church. Don't faint at my tribulations for you. It is for your glory." He said, God is going to use my life and the tribulations that I go through and the tribulations that you're going to go through to show forth his glory and deliverance, and in an even greater way. And then he goes in verse 14, and he says, "For this cause I bow my knees unto the Father of the Lord Jesus Christ, that he would cause you to be strengthened with might in the inner man." It's a great prayer. The rest of chapter 3 is that prayer. And so we need to not be thrown when we hear of some of the problems of believers, maybe in the other part of the country. We certainly saw some things over these last few years, but then especially we look at the persecution in restricted access countries, and even in Europe. It's amazing in Scandinavia, other places, how Christians are really suffering legally for just taking basic stands for the Lord. But we need to look at that, and that ought to encourage our faith. It's not just us. It's not just our church. There are people around the world that love God, that are standing for the truth from all different kinds of backgrounds. And the truth is working in them. And over we see God's deliverance. And even if there's a martyrdom, God uses that to bring many more people to the Lord. The Apostle Paul in 2 Timothy really does deal with Timothy about the fact that do not be afraid. God's not giving you that kind of spirit. Don't be thrown by the fact that I'm in prison and that I'm probably facing martyrdom. Instead, be strong in the Lord and realize that God is working. This shows that it's real. You know, the one thing that people do is they scratch their heads and wonder, well, why are Christians so unfairly being treated? Because there's a real devil, and the Bible is true, and what God is saying about what would happen is true. Encourage yourself. In the midst of all this, realize that God is accomplishing his purpose, and that there are millions of people around the world standing true to the Lord Jesus. And so let's take this encouragement from the Apostle Paul and also just glorify God for his goodness in the lives of those that are willing to stand for him.